Welcome to Todd Talks, a small segment of our Plywood Palace Garage YouTube channel. I'm your host, Todd Touchberry, and today we're stepping back to a time when roads were dirt, speed was measured in courage, and the automobile was still a mechanical marvel. At the heart of it all, the car that put the world on wheels, the Ford Model T. But we won't stop there. We'll also look at other pre-war classics and talk to the people who keep them alive.
So grab your driving goggles, advance the spark, and let's take a ride into the golden age of motoring.
All right, welcome back to Todd Talks. Appreciate y'all joining in. We have my beautiful bride, Jennifer, as a co-host tonight, and a former guest, Alex, on here tonight, and he's going to introduce his friend.
All right. Well, hi, guys. It's great to be with everyone again. We have the real pleasure tonight. All the Model T and antique car people are in for a real treat. I want to introduce my friend, John Daly of Millington, Illinois. John is an absolute expert antique auto owner. I'm going to let him talk about all the cars, but I met him 20 years ago because I saw his Model T in a Walmart parking lot and I started stalking him. I had to meet the man that had a Model T in the Walmart parking lot. So he and I have become very close friends, and he's had a great impact on my life after I bought a Model T, and my Model T runs the way it does and even runs today because of this man. So with no further delay, I'll turn it back to you, Todd.
All right, Jennifer, I'm gonna let you start the show off while I'm bringing the video up again. It's this has fought us for about 10 minutes now.
Well, John, we've heard a lot of good things about you and heard that you have really, really cool stuff. So we can't wait to hear about it. But tell us how you got started with your love of antique cars and started it off.
Sure. First of all, I'd just like to thank Alex for inviting me and Todd and you both all for just inviting me to be here. And Alex, I think, speaks higher of me than I would speak of myself. And I also remember a screeching car screeching into a Walmart parking lot that day. I don't know if you remember that, Alex, or not, but I'm pretty sure you left skid marks.
Is that where y'all met?
Yeah, we met at the Walmart. My daughter McKenna and I had gone to Walmart to pick something up, and we're getting out to get in the Model T. We were driving the Senator sedan, and a crazy man comes screaming up next to us, just sliding right in next to me, asking me to stop. And we talked, I don't know, we must have talked for 30 minutes. I know we drove around Walmart a little bit that day, but yeah, and the rest is history. Fun, nice to have somebody in the area that can share the car stuff with. As far as Jennifer's question about how I got started in this, it's been part of my life my entire life. My dad was into cars. My dad had I would count 9 cars. If you start counting parts cars, he probably had more like 12. But he was in cars all my whole life. I grew up in it, learned how to drive in a Model T. My brothers learned how to drive in a Model T. We went on tours with their car clubs. I still participate in one of the car clubs that my dad was a founding member of. In fact, I'm going down for a show in Mount Pleasant, Iowa here in a couple of weeks, the Midwest Old Threshers reunion. I'm sure we can talk about that a little bit more later. But when I moved out of the house, I knew I basically chose my career as something that would give me enough money to be able to play with cars, because that's really all I cared about at the time. And started buying my own cars, and then have inherited some of my dad's cars and one of my cousin's cars, and bought my own cars. And now I have too many cars. I always said that I did not want to have as many cars as my dad did, because he had all these cars and wasn't able to play with all of them just because he couldn't maintain them all. So I said, 2 or 3, that's all I need. And now I have as many as my dad does. So
what was the first car that you actually purchased yourself?
The first one that I bought was a 1931 DeSoto Model SA 4-door sedan. I kind of like cars that they're unusual, that you don't see every day, and you don't see a lot of early DeSotos. Most of the time you see a DeSoto, it's a 40s or 50s car. This is a 31, 6-cylinder engine, hydraulic brakes. I think I still have the car, but I think I'm hoping to give that to my son here before the year is out. It's in pieces, being in a trailer and in my garage, and he's interested in it. So I'm hoping I can give it to him and he can do something with it.
So if your son is watching tonight, he needs to either come on over or run.
No, he knows, and he wants the car, and he's making plans. He's trying to get room in his garage to come and get it. So I'll be happy when he does. That'll make me a happy dad.
Yeah, I got you there, 100%.
That's me, actually sitting where I'm sitting right now in my basement. People laugh at me because I have two cars typically in my basement. We actually remodeled the basement in order to put our 1909 Sears motor buggy in here. That was one of the ones that I inherited from my father, and it's on the left of this picture is the Sears. And we redid that area of the basement. I replaced the sliding doors with French doors so I could roll the car in and out. We have a walkout basement. And then the opportunity to get the Lindsley Dart, which is on the right, came up. And my wife, who is absolutely phenomenal, actually let me put a second car down here. And I think that she likes it maybe not as much as I do, but certainly she does like it. So I'm very fortunate in that.
So since you're bringing that part up, tilt your camera over to your left shoulder a little bit.
That's the dart. The Lindsley Dart's behind me right now. You can see I've got it lined up to roll out of the basement because it's summertime and I like to get it out and play with it. And the Sears, which is usually sitting over here, is already at the show in Mount Pleasant waiting for me to get there. I took it down a couple of weeks ago after our family car event. So,
all right, very good. All right. Which one is this?
And this is the 1909 Sears motor buggy, the 204th Sears built. This was one of my dad's cars. I remember this car when I was little, unrestored in the garage, sitting in the corner of the garage, and in the early 70s, and I would say maybe around 1971 or so, and I would have been 6 years old at the time. We finally talked my dad into working on this car, and he pulled it out of the corner. And I remember pulling it out of the corner. I remember him disassembling it. Me and my brothers would be out in the garage with him almost every night as he worked on it. The car was in very original condition. It had all the original paint, original striping, original tires. It's a very low mileage car. In fact, there was a story going around Iowa about a Sears motor buggy, one that was bought by a doctor, and the doctor got the car, set it up, was practice driving it, and ran it off the road into a ditch, broke the left front wheel, and put it away and never drove it again. This car has almost no mileage on it. The left front wheel was missing. The left front spindle was bent. And so we think that this is probably the car that story came from. My dad drove past this car on his way home from work in Burlington, Iowa. It's originally from Lockridge, Iowa. The guy who had it in Burlington bought it off of a junk dealer in Lockridge, and it had sunk down in the mud and rotted off all the spokes up to the hubs, except for one wheel. One wheel is blocked up, so only one of the wheels on it is fully original. The other ones my dad had to either assemble or find. I think he found two new wheels for it. But he was driving by this place every day and tried to buy it, and along with other people who had tried to buy the car. And my dad one day went out there, took every bit of money he had, which was $300, and went out and talked to the guy and said, "Merle, what's it going to take to buy this car right now?" And Merle thought about it. And he said, "I'll take $300. And my dad whipped out the money, gave it to him, and rolled the car out of the building. And it's been in the family ever since. We think that was probably in the 50s sometime. My dad didn't remember exactly. My dad did most of the restoration work on this car. I did the top. I put the white tires on it. I found all the correct brass lights, horn, and that kind of stuff for it to kind of complete it. And I still have a couple more things that I want to do to the car. I now know what the carpet's supposed to look like, so I want to put more of original style carpet in it. I haven't done that yet, but other than that, it's a running car. I'll be taking. This is already at the Old Threshers reunion, where this picture was taken, and I'll be playing with that here in a couple of weeks for 5 days. So
that's a single cylinder,
two-cylinder motor, about 12 horsepower. They were sold right out of the catalog. I actually have a 1909 fall catalog that has the ad that this car was probably bought out from. They were sold from 1909 to 1912 by Sears. Then they were sold by the Lincoln Automobile Company as a Lincoln automobile. This is a 1909. They made about 600 cars in 1909. This is number 204 of approximately 600. They made about 3,500 cars altogether.
Do you know how many of those cars still exist by chance? Or you may
Our registry, I help maintain the registry. I don't maintain it myself, but I work with the guy who does. And there's about 300 cars listed in the registry.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. That's a pretty good survival rate for a car of this era.
Yeah, it is for sure. So are most of those cars in America, or are they all over the world? Or
they're all over the world.
Are they?
I mean, most of them are in America, and most of the ones in America are in the Midwest.
Gotcha.
But they're all over the United States.
Is the maintenance hard to do on something like that?
It's a constant maintenance car. It's always something that needs tinkering. I know these cars of this era are just not turnkey automobiles. This car is notorious at the Old Threshers reunion for running fantastic through the show. And then on Monday, when I drive it off the grounds to load in the trailer, as soon as the front wheels hit the pavement outside the park, it starts missing. It's notorious for it.
So in something that old, do you run, modern fuel and oil and everything? I mean, do you have any problem with that? Or
I don't. I run just unleaded fuel. I do try to find alcohol-free gas to run through it. I can get alcohol-free at the Walmart near us. For oil, I run a mixture of 30 weight and 190 weight gear oil. I run a fixed 50-50 mixture, and it's got a 4-pump oiler on it. So I I fill the oiler, and I also put oil into the crankcase. And this car, like I said, is original. It's got the original pistons, original rings on it in it. So it does smoke a little bit. Probably smokes more than it should. I have the oiler set to deliver the maximum amount of oil because I would rather have that and then blow an engine. So
I've ridden in that car. It's incredible. And John's very modest, but he made that top himself, and just one of the many talents that he has. So it's a great car.
Well, and then that top, my dad, when my dad restored the car, he never did the top on it. He did the top bows, and he never got around to the top. And the top was always in the down position with a faux boot on it to make it look like the top was just down. And my dad was pushing 90 years old, and we were sitting at his kitchen table one day, and he said, I really would have liked to have driven that SEARS just once with the top on it. And I said, well, let's make that happen. Let's make that happen. So I looked into what it would cost to have a top put on it, and I told him what the price was, and he said, no, the price, I think they wanted like $3,500, and my dad paid $300 for this car. He couldn't justify that. Yeah. And so I said, well, Dad, you know what? I think I can build a top for that car. So I said, if you'll let me take it to my house in Illinois, I think I can do it. So I brought it. He let me bring it over, and I researched the top. I looked at several other SEARSes to see how they were constructed, and I had to restore the top bows because they had gotten bent from bouncing up and down on being down for so long, being carried on trailers from time to time. So I restored the top bows, sewed up the top on it, and what you see is what I did. Okay, this one's actually not my car, but there's some story to go with this one. Then actually the next, I think some other pictures I sent you too. This is a 1922 Model T Ford. This was one of my dad's cars too. My brother has this car now, but this car was bought by my dad in the late 80s. In fact, my wife and I, who've been married for 37 years, were dating at the time that my dad bought this car. And in fact, the first time I brought my girlfriend at the time home to meet my parents, I didn't know this car was in the garage. And he opens up the garage, and here's this car sitting here. Of course, I was super excited, another car to play with. And so then the whole time we're there, I'm like, gosh, I really want to go out to the garage. So I'm like, hey, honey, why don't you stay in the house here with my mom and dad? I'm going to go out to the garage for a while, just for a little while. So I did. And then lo and behold, about 5 minutes later, here she comes out to the garage too. She had found some coveralls from my dad. And we worked on this car a little bit. The engine was stuck in it when my dad got it. My dad got the engine freed up, and he got the engine running, and it ran twice. It ran twice in the late 80s, and then it never ran again. My dad started to do some work on it. He took the front axle out from under it, took the steering column out, worked on the steering column and stuff. I think go to the next picture. I think the next picture shows the way it was most of the last 30 or 35 years. This is what it looked like the last 35 years, stuck in the back of the garage, buried in crap. And well, let me back up a second. In 2020, the COVID year, we had all taken the time off work around Labor Day to do the Old Threshers reunion, my brothers and I. And because they canceled the Old Threshers reunion, we decided to get together at my dad's house and play with my dad's cars. Get some of the cars out that hadn't run in a while. Like you can see the front end of a Model A sitting there. That's a Model A pickup truck. And so we decided the next year to get together again. And we decided to call it the Jack Daly Memorial and Old Car Weekend. And we've been doing it ever since. So this year, which at the end of July, we always do it the first weekend in August is when we try to do this. Our project car was this Model T to try and get it out and get it running. And my goal was to drive it. My brother didn't think we were going to get that far. So this was how we started. This was when I walked into the garage, what I started with, or what we started with. So go to the next picture. So I started working on it. I started cleaning it. So we pulled it out. We started this is basically the way it was. At this point, we had already put the firewall back in it and started some of the wiring on it. But you can see the front end was out from under. We had to find pieces, and it was like a scavenger hunt. My dad had a lot of the pieces with it, but some of them he didn't. Like he took the front end apart, did the kingpins and bushings, but never fit the spindles back into the axle. Could not find wheel bearings. So every time we had to find something, it'd be like, okay, we got to go find a steering column. We got to go find a tie rod. We got to find this, that, and we go off into the basement looking for parts. And the steering column was interesting because we all thought that my dad had restored the steering column, which he had, but it wasn't done. The front top quadrant wasn't riveted in. So instead of trying to finish that up, we went on a search for a steering column, found that. I found one, the only one I could find that was usable, was all seized up. I got it freed up. We put it in the car. And then the first picture you saw was the car at what we call our car show on Sunday afternoon, where we get all the cars out and put them in the yard. And we did get it running. It took off on we had to pull it a couple of times to get it started, but by the time we took it out for the car show, it would start in the first or second pull of the crank. So it was a fun project, and we all drove it a little bit. We couldn't drive it very far. We had a lawnmower gas tank up on it just to drive it out there, and finding the wheels. We had to go down and find some wheels in the basement that would work on it, and then we couldn't find bearings, but I found hubs with spindles in them, just hubs. So I said, well, I'll take the bearings out of them. Could not get the bearing races out of those hubs. So we took the hubs out of the wheels and put these hubs into the wheels. And it was just a challenge the whole weekend. And we did it in basically 2 days. We basically started on a Friday morning, and wow, by Sunday, well, by Saturday evening, we had it ready to go.
That's amazing for having to look down for parts. Now, you said you and your wife started dating when your dad bought this car?
Yes.
Okay, so has your wife driven this yet?
She did not. my wife in driving Model Ts. That's an interesting topic.
Jennifer knows where I'm going with this.
Jennifer, do you drive the Model Ts?
Jennifer does not actively drive a Model T. Jennifer has driven a Model T before, but Todd taught me like I was standing on the side, and it was terrifying. Had a bicycle in our neighborhood pass me while I was driving. Now, really fast.
You're breaking up real bad, Jim.
Oh.
Well, I think the moral of the story is that Jennifer and my wife Amy need to drive Model Ts more.
Most definitely.
All of my kids can drive the Model Ts. My 2 boys and my daughter can drive them, but my wife, she's driven them. But every time she gets behind the wheel, I gotta go through from the beginning how to do it.
It's not natural. It's something that my brain can't wrap around, you know.
And that's what she feels too. When he shifts into high. And that was just pulling 4 coils off the shelf, and the best ones I could run through my strobo spark and find, and threw them into the coil box. We were shocked of how well it ran.
So who's right? That's your brother driving?
That's my brother. It's my brother and my nephew, his son. It's actually their car. So
Okay.
they inherited this from my father.
Got you. Okay, I remember you saying that now. All right, let's see what's next after this. I love that sound. Yeah.
Gotta love that sound.
All right, what do we got here?
Oh boy, here's my EMF. This is a 1912 EMF Demi Tonneau, one of 4 or 5 1912 Demi Tonneau models for the EMF. 1912 was the last year for the EMF. It became Studebaker after that. The EMFs were made from 1909 to 1912. This, as far as I know, is the oldest 1912. They started the serial number range over for 1912 in the 300 range, and this is the 80th one of that range. I bought this car from the original family who's had it since it was brand new. It was an actual barn find. Went down to Kentucky and pulled it out of a barn off the property it's been in its whole life. Last time it had ran before I got it was in the 80s, where they had like family reunion or something. They got it out and drove it, although I can't even imagine how they could have driven it with the wheels they had on it. These wheels are actually wheels that I had gotten after I bought the car. It actually, when I bought it, it had wheels from a mid-30s Ford on it. And the way they had them on the spindles with a couple of carriage bolts and some wood blocks, it was ridiculous.
And Todd and Jen, again, I'm going to brag on John as much as I can here. He is a master fabricator. There is no Langs, there's no Snyders, there's no Texas T for EMFs. So John's had to make himself a lot of parts, including rolling a new fender by himself out of steel. So, I mean, it's just incredible to see this.
John is also a cheapskate, Todd. So you have to understand that.
I get that 100%.
I thought I'd have it closer now than I do, but you know how life gets in the way and slows things down, and you get other cars and stuff happens.
What price range would this have been in compared to a Model T or Lincoln or what have you? You know, I guess this is before Lincoln.
This would have been about a $1,200 car in 1912. As a Model T was probably running what, $800, $700 in that time, somewhere around there. But EMF was either second or third behind Ford in the years that they were manufactured. So they were made in high numbers. But when I say that they're second or third, Ford was putting out 200,000 cars a year, where EMF was doing 30 or 40,000 cars a year. So they were a distant behind Ford when they were making cars. But this is a 30 horsepower automobile. It's got a 3-speed rear transaxle on it. It'll get out in the road and move.
Electric lights or gas?
Gas headlights and kerosene cowl lights and tail light.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on down to the next one.
Okay, the 1917 Model T. This was one of my dad's cars. Probably his second favorite car. I would say his favorite car is probably the SEARS, which we already saw. This car my dad bought when he was 16 years old, in 1942 or so. He paid $35 for this car. Told his mom that he only paid $25 for it because $35 was too much. He bought the car in from Lockridge, Iowa, same place where my SEARS was from. The SEARS and this car both came from the same general area. Didn't know how to drive a Model T. Drove it I guess it's about 40 miles home to Burlington. Came into Mount Pleasant, Iowa. When he came into Mount Pleasant, somebody pulled out in front of him. And as a new Model T driver, not knowing what to do, he did what he was told: an emergency stop. You hit all the pedals and it will come to a stop, which he did. Started it back up, drove it the rest of the way into Burlington, got into Burlington, loaded all his buddies in it, his 16-year-old buddies into it, headed down to the main drag in downtown Burlington, rounded the corner, and one of the rear wheels came off. He had fractured an axle when he had the hard stop. So he had to go home, get his mom's car in a chain, drug it home, sparking all the way back home, and then had to find a new rear end to put in it. And when he went away to World War II, he did not expect to come home from World War II. So he gave the car to his younger brother, my Uncle Tom. And when he did survive World War II and he got back, he had to buy the car back off of him to get it back. The car, when my dad had it when he was 16, he painted it yellow and red or yellow and orange. Why, I don't know. Then my uncle, when he got it, he painted it purple and gray because that was the Burlington High School colors. And then when my dad got it back, he painted the black that you see on it here and put a new interior in it. And this car, I'd hate to say how many miles are on this car. I learned how to drive in this car. My brothers learned how to drive in this car. We used to tour in this car. There's a story that I will not confirm or deny that a young me was known to throw silverware out of picnic baskets in the back seat because I like the sound of the way it sounded when it was hitting the highway when we were on tours when I was little. But I will not confirm that story. I have this car out about every weekend. I have this car out.
John, I've driven this car. It is absolutely amazing. And John, tell the famous story of what happened one day when you were a kid in the garage.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. This car, it's about as worn out as a Model T can be. The brake lever paw on it I was pre-driving age. So I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And in order to work in the garage, we'd have to move a car out of the garage to work in it. So this car was in the main bay. So I moved it out of the garage, worked on my bicycle or whatever, and I was putting it away. And my cousin was there and my buddies were there, and we all hopped in it to drive it back in the garage, 5 feet in the garage. I know, no big whoop, but it was for us. Well, the brake paw, the brake lever paw was worn on it. And unbeknownst to me, when I pushed it down into high gear, the brake lever went all the way down, and I didn't realize it. So I got to about where it needed to be in the garage. I let my foot off the pedal. The car, of course, hops into high gear and shoots across the garage, takes the vice table, pushes it up against the wall, and the car is sitting there, again, pushed up against the wall with the rear wheel spinning on the floor of the garage. Of course, I was petrified at the time. I shut the car off, I get out, I'm analyzing the damage. And when I say vice table, this is a big machinist vice. The base is made out of a piston from an old steam engine. It's a huge table, heavy table that it pushed up against the wall. I moved the car back. The radiator's leaking. So I'd punctured the radiator. One of the headlight lenses came out, did not break, hit the ground. So I put the headlight lens back on. I got some stop leak off the shelf, threw stop leak in the radiator and got the radiator stop leaking, pushed it back into its space, went down into the basement, found another brake lever with a good paw on it, cleaned it up, painted it, put it on the car so I'd never have that problem again. And that story went untold for 25 years until that radiator started leaking again and my dad replaced it. And I said, you know why that's leaking there? And I told him the story, and he just kind of laughed at that point because he had bought new radiators for all of his Model Ts. So I finally got to confess my little dealings with him. So
that's cool that y'all have so much sentimental value in that car.
My gosh, you can't even imagine the day that my father passed away. I already had the car in my possession here in Illinois at the time, and the first thing I did was get this Model T out and drive it. These are my parents. Before I was born, with the Model T and an overlook over the Mississippi River. This picture was taken as a part of they were doing a car show in town or something like that, and they featured several of the cars that were going to be in the car show. This was the car that my dad always did anything with at the time. So this is pre-me. So this has got to be early 60s that this was taken. In fact, that dress, it just reminds me as I'm seeing it, my daughter will be wearing that dress that my mom is wearing at the Old Threshers reunion this year. She found it. She found it this year, and she's going to be wearing that same dress. That's interesting.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think we have a recreation picture.
Yeah, then we got them together in the same place, same car, same place. And this was a couple of years before my dad passed away. So
I think that's really cool. I love the recreation pictures.
Yeah. We've had a lot of, I can't even tell you how many good time memories I've got with that car. I mean, it's just, and you know, I learned how to drive both of my boys. I think this was the first car they ever drove. I think my daughter, my center door was the first one that she ever drove, but more memories than I can tell you with this car. It's a fun car.
All right, let's see what's next.
Another one of my dad's cars. This is the third one that I got from my dad. This is a 1930 Model A two-door sedan. I just got this one home to my property here within the last couple of years. Most of the time that in my life, this car sat unused in the garage. I was working in the garage one day in my dad's car. I had to go to my dad's place I'm making some bushings up for my EMF and on his lathe. And my brother and I were talking about the cars in the garage. And I said, well, that Model A will run. He goes, that Model A hasn't run in 30 years. I said, I could have that Model A running in 20 minutes. He said, you could not. I said, yes, we will. I went and found a battery. I cleaned the points in it, put a little gas in it, fired right up. And we got it out of the garage and took it for a drive. Hadn't been out of the garage in many years. So when the cars were getting split up, I ended up with this car. This is one I'm hoping at some point to restore and drive cross country in. But we'll see if I get it done. My dad bought this car off of a used car lot for $150.
Nice. Nice.
So we decided we wanted to get an electric car. We looked and looked and looked, and this one came available. It was advertised as a 1912 Baker electric. Turned out that it was a 1912 Roush and Lang electric car. It used to belong. We bought it from in Cleveland from a family who bought it off the Cleveland Historical Society. Supposedly, in the 70s they would drive this car around downtown Cleveland. So it was a running car in the 70s. The people who I bought it off of had it in a garage that was falling down around it. I talked to the people, and they had advertised it somewhere online. I had seen it and was talking to them, and I said, they sent me some pictures of it, and I said, yeah, they wanted more money than I was willing to spend on it. And I said, yeah, that's more than I'm willing to spend. But if you decide to lower your price, let me know, and I might be interested. About 3 weeks later, they called me up again and said, well, we lowered the price down to, I don't remember what they said, $7,000 or something like that. And I said, well, that's more than I'm willing to spend, but it's enough that I'm interested in coming to look at it now. So me and my son hopped in the car and we drove out to Cleveland, and this car they had sitting out in a yard under a blue tarp where it had been for a year under a blue tarp in a yard. And the garage that they had it in was falling down, and you could see where they had to dig ruts into the dirt in the garage to get it out of the garage because the garage had settled so much since they put it in there. And I'm looking it over, and it's got the original tires, the Mott's cushion rubber tires on it. And I went up to one of the tires, and I expected it to be rock hard, and it's still soft. Really? All the tires are still soft. The original batteries are still in the rear bay of the thing. The batteries out of the front bay were in a pile of goo on the garage floor. I wish I had taken parts of it. Now, I didn't. I wish I had gone in there and taken some of the pieces of those batteries, which I didn't do. But I went in the door that you can see there, I went and grabbed the door handle for that door, expecting the wood and the body to be all bad. And I opened the door and I closed it. Click, click. It just clicked like a brand new. I went around to the spokes and the wheels. I clicked them with my knuckle, and they all rang true as being tight. And I pulled my son aside and I said, this car is in much better shape than I expected it to be. And now the interior shot in it, the top's out of it. It had patent leather fenders. So you can see the irons are still there for the fenders. And there's a little bit of the leather still hanging there someplace, but that's all been lost. The lights were not on it. I found the lights. Actually, that's an interesting story too. I figured I had to figure out what lights it needed. A buddy of mine had a 1916 Detroit or Roush and Lang electric, and I said, "What are the lights on it?" He said, "They're made by the White Manufacturing Corporation, but they're where they're marked is down in the reflector. They're hard to see." So I start searching eBay. White. What do you search for? White light. I mean, can you imagine how many entries you get for that? White lamp, carriage. I said, I looked for weeks, and at one point I said, "All right, let's really think this. If I found these lights and I didn't know what they were off of, and I didn't know anything about cars, how would I list? I don't know, carriage lamp. put carriage lamp into the search. These lamps were number 2 on the list, and they're exactly the right lamp for the car. This car did not have headlights. All they had were the cowl lights, and these lamps actually have an additional reflector to push light forward on them instead of just being a cowl light. So I was able to buy the lights for this car. And then this picture. The only other picture I've ever found of a Roush and Lang in the same configuration as my car. I came across this picture. We were driving back from Rochester, New York, after my father-in-law's funeral, and our drive back was horrendous. It was foggy all the way from Rochester to Cleveland, and I was exhausted by the time we were coming into Cleveland. And I asked my wife, do you mind if we pull off the road? I got to get out of the car for a while. This fog has got me weary. And she said, no problem. I said, do you mind going to we go to the Cleveland, the Crawford collection they had the Cleveland Historical Society car collection there. And she said, that's fine, but I'm not going to go into the car museum. I've already been there. I don't need to see it again. So I went in, I'm walking around, looking at the cars. And before I left, they had a library, a research library there as well. So I went into the research library, and I'm going through the card catalog to see what they had on Roush and Lang since they were built in Cleveland. I thought, well, maybe they'll have some stuff that I'd never seen before. So I looked through the stuff they have, and it was all stuff that I had seen before. So the librarian says, what are you looking for? Can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm looking for stuff on the Roush and Lang electric car. I've got one, and I thought maybe you would have some documentation since they were built here in Cleveland, but everything you have here is stuff I've already seen. He goes, well, and she goes, well, we might have stuff in the back stacks. We can check there if you like. I go, back stacks? Sure, let's do it. So she does a search, and they have a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, how can I see this stuff? And she says, yeah, it'll take me some time to dig it out of the back stacks, but I can do that. And I said, well, give me everything from 1910 to 1914. And so she said, okay, that'll take me about a half an hour. So I called my wife and said, I'm going to be a little bit longer. I got to look at something in the library. Most of the stuff they had in these files were just pictures of Roush and Langs, like this one here, Polaroids and stuff like that. There was a nice 1910 to 1912 parts manual, which I would have loved to have had an original. I took a bunch of pictures of. But the second to the last envelope I went through, this picture and a mate to it, which I didn't send you, were of it. And I'm looking at this picture and saying, wow, this is the first picture I've seen of a Roush and Lang in the same configuration as mine. 1912 was a changeover year for Roush and Lang. You see the way the back of the body comes down and curves under the seat and then continues on down under the door. The early 1912s were like this. The late 1912s were that swoop came from the back all the way down in one continual swoop under the doors. And it had the patent leather fenders like mine and the splash aprons like mine. And the more I looked at it, I looked at the rear tire. And if you look at the front side of that rear tire, you can see a chunk of rubber out of it. And I realized my car has a chunk of rubber out of that tire. And then I started looking at around the windshield. There's a fabric, and you can kind of see if you zoom in that fabric is ripped, and mine's ripped in the same exact space. The more I looked, the more I realized this is my car. This is a picture of my car. I wouldn't be surprised when they pulled it out of a barn wherever it was found. What are the odds of me just happening to be in Cleveland, going and finding a picture of my car in the Cleveland Historical Society library? And look, it was in so much better shape there. You can see the interior was still in good shape. The top was still on it. The leather was still on all the fenders. The lights were already missing on it. But what are the odds of finding that? I mean, it just seems unbelievable.
Yeah, that's got to be a slim chance. Any idea where this photo was taken?
No clue. It had Michigan license. It still has 1920 Michigan license plates on it. So the last time my car was licensed was in 1920 in Michigan. So it was a Michigan car.
What kind of production numbers do they have?
Not high. 1912 was the highest year of production. It was after that they really started trailing off once Cadillac came out with an electric starter. I think they made 500 cars in 1912. This is the only 1912 Brougham in this configuration that's known. I've had celebrities interested in this car trying to buy it off of me. It's my wife's favorite car of all the cars we own. This is my wife's favorite. It might be my favorite too. don't let the EMF hear me say that, but this picture. I mentioned the Old Threshers reunion, which is coming up. It's always 5 days ending Labor Day in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. It's probably it's one of, if not the biggest steam show. My family's been displaying cars at the show my entire life. We put on presentations at the show, and that's what this is a picture of, is one of the presentations that we put on. You'll see me there on the left. The woman in the middle is Julie Gertis, and the man on the right is Bob Gertis. I mentioned earlier that I'd found him an electric car. That's his 1916 Roush and Lang electric car. This is part of a presentation that we do. It's called a 1912 sales pitch. And what we do, and what you can't see, is there's a Stanley steamer off to the right in the picture that Bob has too. So Bob has the Stanley steamer and the Roush and Lang, and then I have my SEARS here. So what our presentation is that it's 1912 and you're going to buy a car. What are you going to buy? You're going to buy a steam car. You're going to buy an electric car. You're going to buy a gas car. So we roll these cars out and we try to sell the audience on it, and we each take turns and we banter back and forth with each other. It's not scripted. We just do it off the cuff and help people, try and teach people a little bit about the cars at the same time. And then we take a vote at the end and see which car wins. Like I said, I've been doing this. This will be my 61st reunion.
Wow.
So, been there every year of my life.
Jim would like the car bantering part. The salesman pitch.
We have a lot of fun. I usually start my thing with, ladies and gentlemen, do not listen to these charlatans as they try to sell you more car than you need for more money than you need to spend. Because I've got the cheap car of all of them. So here's my Model T before and after of my 1920 center door sedan. Obviously the left is before and the after is on the right. I always like that picture after. The only piece of color in that whole picture is the orange Illinois 1920 license plate. I bought this car in 1993 and restored it in the garage. Didn't intend to do what I did. I intended to just buy the car, do some quick work on it, get it back roadworthy and drive it. But the more I got into it, the more worn out it was. It needed some woodwork. I had to do some woodwork in the body, but it started right up. I mean, you can see there's a spark plug wire hanging loose. I fixed that spark plug wire. It was missing the carburetor, so I found a carburetor that was right for the car in a bucket of Model T carburetors in my dad's basement. Put the carburetor onto the intake manifold. Turned the little elbow out of the gas line off the edge of the carburetor straight up and filled the carburetor with gas. Wired up a battery, pulled it over once in a choke, filled the carburetor up again, pulled it over a second time, and the car was running. First time in 30 years it had run. The guy I bought it off of never ran the engine. He had it for 30 or 35 years. I was so excited that I did it again, fired the thing up again. Unbeknownst to me, the little brake paw lever on the brake lever was bad, and it threw itself into high gear once it started and pushed me across the garage and before it ran out of gas in the carburetor. So, and here's the Dart, the Lindsley Dart, one of 4 or 5 remaining. This car was bought by my cousin, Pat Cahill. He bought it and restored it in the 80s. We used to drive this car around. He'd get this car out. We'd get our SEARS out, and we'd tool around Burlington, Iowa in them. You know, how often do you see 2 Highlanders out driving around, you know? And the car when Pat restored it, he didn't have the lamps on it like I've got on it there. My dad gave him these lamps. These lamps were actually lamps that used to be on our SEARS before I found the correct lamps for the car. So my dad gave Pat these lamps, saying, you should put these lamps on your car. It should have lamps on it. Well, Pat gave them back to me at one point, snuck them back to me. He said, here, you take these lamps back. I'm never going to put these on the car. And when it's your car, you can put them on. I said, Pat, I couldn't afford that car. You know, that car is way outside of my price range. He goes, and so he kept saying that over and over again, when it's your car, when it's your car. Well, unbeknownst to me, he had willed this car to me. So at one point I got a call from his brother, my cousin, his lawyer, saying Pat's ready to let you have the car. He was still alive at the time, so I went over to Pat's house. I said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure there's not somebody in your family who would like to have the car?" And his daughter was not interested in it. His daughter was interested in his Model A, and he didn't want this car to go to somebody who would just sell it and try and make money off of. He knew that I would enjoy it. He knew I would play with it. So now it's in my care, and it usually is, well, it's sitting right behind me right now, where it's sitting right in our family room right now. So, but I love it. It's fun to play with. It's another one of those finicky cars that just constantly needs something done to it to work on it, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun to drive.
Yeah, it's quite an honor to get a car like that wheeled to you.
Yeah, it's a big honor, and I hope I'm doing him proud by it, by showing it where I'm taking it, and I've had to do some work to the car. It had gone a little bit into a little bit of disrepair over the years, but I've got it back to the point where it's running pretty good. It's what's funny about this car is when I got it running. My cousin said, yeah, you're going to have to adjust the high-speed clutch from time to time because it wears the clutch. Well, when I got it running, and I think Alex was with me one of the first times I drove it, and I couldn't slow the engine down. So when you'd shift into high gear, and it would sit there and spin the high-speed clutch until it grabbed in. And I thought that's kind of odd. I can't get the engine to slow down like that. Well, eventually, after a couple more runs, the float was bad in it, so I had to pull the carburetor apart. And it's got a Schebler carburetor on it, which is the same that I'm running on the SEARS. So I have a bunch of spare Schebler carburetors. So I took the Schebler carburetors apart and to see if I had a float that would work, and I didn't. So I ended up making a float, got some material from the Restoration Supply Company, and carved out a float for it, put a float in it. And as I'm putting the carburetor back together, I'm looking, and there's an air valve that's missing. It was missing in the carburetor. I'm thinking, what the heck? So I look again, and it's not there. Well, that's why the carburetor is running wide open, because there's supposed to be a valve there to restrict the air. So I pull all my Schebler carburetors out, and I'm going through looking for parts. And okay, there's a spring. That's a spring I need out of that one, but that valve's too big. Up there, that valve will work. Okay, I'll take that one. And here's this. And I had just the right pieces I needed to put the valve back in it, and put it all back together, and put it on the car and cranked it up, and took the throttle and moved it over, and it dig it like it's supposed to do. And now I can shift it without spinning the clutch in it. And I was talking to my brothers about it, because I had never ridden in this car since my cousin restored it. I rode in it when he first bought it, sitting in the little trunk area. My dad and my cousin were in the passenger seat, or in the driver's seat, and my brother and I sat in the trunk area. I remember riding in it then when I was very young, but I hadn't been in it since I had it then. But my brothers had, and I was telling them about my ordeals with the carburetor, and they said, "Oh man, when you'd ride in that with Pat, he'd just be flying down the road in it." Well, yeah, I understand why now. You couldn't slow the thing down. It would be running full speed the entire time. But it's a fun car. I enjoy driving it. We'll see where life takes me with this car.
So what's the top speed on something like that, or what are you comfortable cruising in that?
No faster than I have to go. It probably does 15 to 20 miles an hour pretty easily. I think they advertised 25 is the top speed. It has a 10 horsepower Dart motor, Dart Manufacturing Corporation motor. The chassis was made by the Dart Manufacturing Corporation, and you could buy just the chassis for these cars and put your buggy body on it and build a car from your buggy. You could do that, or the Lindsley Corporation out of Chicago would buy the Dart chassis, and they put bodies on the Dart chassis and sold them as the Lindsley automobile. I do not know if this is a Lindsley or just a Dart chassis that somebody put a body on. I call it a Lindsley Dart, and there's really no way to know. There's only, like I said, there's only 5 of these that I know of. I've seen 3 of the other ones, and everyone's different. There's not one of them that's exactly the same. There's differences in all of them. These were hand-built automobiles, so it's hard to say when this was. Is it a 1909? Is it a 1910? My cousin always called it a 1909. hard to say. You know, there's just not enough information on this car to even know.
And Todd and Jen, I'll just add, every 2 weeks in the summer, we have a little hot dog place in Sandwich. And John has brought both this, I bring my Model T, and then John has brought both the Dart and the Sears. And it literally blows people's minds to see a car that old. They don't even understand what they're looking at.
But anyway, it's time to wrap things up, I guess, anyway. And Alex, I appreciate you introducing us to John. And John, I appreciate you taking your time to tell us all about this collection of yours. And
well, thank
Alex,
you for having me.
And we definitely hope you'll tune in again and have you on again, maybe if you get any headway done on one of your cars. And
that'd be great. And if you're ever at the Old Threshers reunion, look me up in the antique car building. My cars are usually in the basement of the building. So
all right,
look me up. Be happy to talk to you.
Sounds good. Hopefully we can make it up there one day. So,
or anybody watching this, come and see me at the Old Threshers reunion.
Sounds good. Well, anyway, we sign off with our show with if we don't see you around here, we'll see you around. You hear?